This is Tim Ho here with Lean Construction Blog and Real Life Lean, where we interview lean superintendents out there putting in the work, putting the practices to work and testing and growing. This is the Lean in Action series. I'm joined here with Buddy Brumley. Buddy, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you, Tim?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I appreciate you joining me here today. Really excited for this conversation. I know you're deep in the lean community. You are one of the OG lean superintendents, so I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Okay.
So I just want to get started. Maybe a little bit of background about yourself. Where are you working currently, and maybe a little bit about how and when you first learned about this whole world of lean and what it all entails.
Okay. Let me get started on this. I'm been with Skiles Group now for 14 years. About 9 years ago, Keon Zandy came over here. So I got a little cheat sheet kind of deal going with lean, based on getting the information from him. So we started that journey about 8 years ago, and we've been kind of pushing it ever since.
Was that the first time you had heard about lean? Was when they came out to site there, or was it kind of floating around the industry before that?
Now, for me personally, that was the first time I'd ever heard of it. So I've been doing it a lot of different ways, but that was the first time I'd heard of that.
That's pretty awesome. When they came out, was that like an immediate, everyone over at your company jumped to it and thought this was the greatest thing, or was there some apprehension there?
Oh no, it wasn't received real well. They found a couple of us, and it surprisingly, a couple of the older guys that saw the value in it and kind of jumped on it. So, you hear these stories all the time about you need to find some kind of lean champions and kind of get them bought in, and then kind of work your way through getting everybody else on board.
Yeah, so were some of those kind of older senior superintendents more the guys that jumped on it, or were they the ones that kind of had that apprehension to begin, or maybe a
Well,
mix?
yeah, it was kind of a mix because, you know, it just so happens, you know, a couple of us took on to it pretty heavily, and then you kind of had to go figure out who was going to be. It's almost like a ranking. I think's what way we did it, to who would be the most receptive and who would have the most trouble with. And so then we attacked the easy kind of low hanging fruit first, kind of worked
Kind of,
our way up the process.
yeah, found
Um,
those folks you knew you'd be able to get on board with it and get a big motion going before you push it out to some of those tougher apples to get there.
right,
That's really cool. I think
right,
that's kind of a little spot where my company's at. So I work for CRB Group. We've got about 2,000 employees countrywide. And we run into that a little bit where you got a few people in each region that are really excited about lean, and you got a lot of other people that are very happy with the way they've been doing things. It's been working up till this point, working, I guess, in quotes there, but they're not interested in change. So we're trying to inspire and really empower those individuals that are excited about it and help them kind of bring the fire to everyone else, which I think with a topic like lean, that's probably your only way to really make a difference. If you start force feeding it to people, it's not going to be well received.
yeah. I mean, there's so much. Even back then, there's so much new stuff coming into the industry, technology and everything else, and it's kind of like some of the guys were like, this is going to change in 6 months anyway. Why are we messing with it? And they had to see that the company was, you know, committed to making it work, to realize, you know, we're either going to accept it or not, because it's not going away. And
Yeah, I think that's important is to stick with it, right? Because I hear that a lot on even on projects when I'm trying to get trade partners involved. Like, well, the next project I go to is probably not going to be doing this, so why do I need to spend the time right now? And I think having that long-term vision that this is the future of the industry and just really staying consistent with it is really important.
oh yeah, and it's not important. It's not fair to me, and that's kind of the message we tried to roll out. Was not fair to me for me to be doing it what the company wants us to do and you not to be doing it. And we use a lot of trade partners over and over again. Uh, and I'm trying to teach them how to do it here. Then they don't have to do it on your job. Then
Yeah.
I get them back on my job again. And it's kind of, why are we having to do this? We didn't have to do this over there. And so there was a lot of that kind of at first also.
What were some of those first steps you guys took towards implementation? Do you remember? Did you guys jump in with last planner system seems to be a pretty common spot that people started, or did you guys start with something different?
No, I mean, we Keon already had our the board concept, kind of the visuals already kind of figured out from where he had come from before. And so, you know, we had some boards made up and basically just tried to get the daily huddles going first, and stand there and talk about visuals and stuff like that, mark things up and kind of worked it kind of slow. I tell everybody, you know, we if we had to go back and do it, we'd probably do it a different way, because we concentrated on the superintendents for several years, and that's the way the old school deal was. Inside the fence is mine. Outside the fence is the project managers. Don't come in here telling my people what my trade partners what to do, and don't just come see me. Let's do the meeting and then leave. And the superintendent had all the pressure of the project.
Yeah.
Everything that happened, either good or bad, was my responsibility. It's a lot of weight on the shoulders. And even after we rolled that out, but when we started rolling it out and making the project managers and other field um, managers um, responsible for learning it too and helping with it, then to me, that was kind of that was a second or third turning point, um, because it was a team thing then. Uh, the other way we learned it, if I was off, it didn't get done for that week or whatever. Um, when I came back, everybody was out of the habit. It was like trying to start it all over again. I had some bad habits with around the holidays when people weren't there to let it kind of slide a little bit. Um, and so things like that where you learn, well, if you can at least get other teammates in there with you that can cover for you when you're out, then it keeps going. And it also it's kind of an accountability thing. They can kind of see what I'm doing, see if I'm doing it right, kind of, and they can help me with it. Accountability out there uh, is not something to be scared about. It's just if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, it doesn't matter who's watching you. And so come on, help me. Uh, so that's kind of what I've seen that I like the most about it. I don't need all that pressure by myself, anymore. And if I was telling anybody that, I would say, don't be stubborn about it, so hard that you don't let others help you because they might see something that they could suggest to me, and make it a little easier even. So I think getting other people bought into it besides just the superintendents is another um, uh, thing that helps push this thing along.
Yeah, I think that's huge when you internalize it as a superintendent or any builder that's trying to take that on, whatever your role is. You're almost afraid to talk about it sometimes. It's this new concept that you're working on, and it's not a perfect system, so you're a little afraid to share it. And it's important to break those down and bring people on board, try to get into that continuous improvement mindset. I know something for me, you talking about the holidays, that really piqued my mind because I was off for a couple weeks and really would had to be diligent about making sure our daily huddles were set up in place and getting someone brought up to speed that could run those daily huddles and our look ahead planning sessions that I was going to be missing. But it does give you a sense to an opportunity to audit yourself almost and make sure you're doing the right things. You get to bring someone in and teach them a little bit about what you're doing, which I think enhances your understanding and learning. So I think that's brought up some really good points there. So it sounds like you've probably done quite a few projects we'll call the old school way, and you've done quite a few projects with lean construction practices put into place. What would you say makes lean construction projects? Let me rephrase that. Why do lean construction practices make for a better project?
Well, first off, it has to do with the schedule, because we're doing pool plans where we're bringing trade partners in to, collaborate on, with other trade partners on putting a schedule together. So in the old days, you'd have a biweekly meeting or a monthly meeting or whatever you had, weekly meeting. You'd, you'd pass the schedule out. Everybody kind of look at it, and half of them be left on the table when the meeting was over with. And, they weren't any more bought into it than anybody, because it was my schedule, not theirs. So when you get them in there committing to each other and talking to each other in those pool plans about, you can't have the room by yourself, or you can't have those 5 rooms by yourself. We've got to be able to start this a little sooner. Okay, well, yeah, I can get one done. Then they start thinking about it, and they're not as closed-minded about it. They kind of open up a little bit, and they start collaborating with each other. Next thing you know, that's why it's called a pull plan, is it starts pulling that date in and gets it back in line with where it needs to be. And that's pretty neat. And then also, um, just watching them when they come up with a constraint or, a problem, go write it on the board. It's like, what? Yeah, go write it on the board. Don't tell me, and it's like, oh, cool. And, it's like, that's a cool part too. And then when you get it done and you can all agree, you can erase it. All that stuff used to live in my pocket or in a notebook or day planner or something, all those issues that they would tell me about. And several of them would get misplaced or whatever because, of just the way it was. And now with it all being visual and on the boards and everybody can see it and agree that it got answered, uh, it just, that kind of was a turning point also.
For that constraint board, you guys have that open for the trades to use at any time? Or is it only something that during your sessions they get up and use?
It's mostly when we're doing our huddles, but they can they can add things if I'm not in the office or whatever. They just got to let me know they added it, you know, and they
Yeah,
can't.
have a discussion with you, maybe give you a little description of what they're
Yeah,
actually adding there.
just because, so I know it's something new. So much going on the job, but nothing can be erased off of that board, the constraint board, unless um, the groups there to agree that, because sometimes it affects more than one trade,
Right.
you know, and so that's the only board that we have that can be erased. Anything can be erased on it during the week, because
Hmm.
we want to know when we miss a date. We want to know when somebody's adjusting manpower. Uh, we want to know when somebody's marking. I'll let them come in and mark up our visual boards of, we'll throw some plans up on the wall, different trades, you know, uh, so that we can kind of keep track of what work's getting done out in the field. And they can come in, kind of mark it up daily so we can keep up with, say, the easiest ones like ductwork. They can go up there and draw in what they got done so that we can kind of keep track of percentage complete on the ductwork. Uh, and then toward the end, we just race that and just color code the duct that's not done, because then it makes it real easy to come in there and kind of wipe off as you go. So,
Yeah.
you know, stuff like that is easy to keep up with, but it's better if they do that during the day or at the end of the day, so that the next morning when we do huddle, uh, everything's current, so everybody kind of knows what's been done.
So that's something you line out with your foreman as an expectation is end of day, you need to come in here and update these boards for the team.
Right, or before the morning huddle. So that means they'd have to be in there, like I say, you're doing 7:30 or 8, they would have to be in there before then, updating the board. So it's just better to try to do it the day before, so you're not having to be in a rush the next day. But yeah, um, and it's kind of like just setting expectations of, um, the way the procedures are gonna be. And so as new trades come on, they catch on to it. And if they're not doing it, I'm not gonna do it. That's the way it kind of always is. And so you got to be consistent, uh, with, those kind of things.
I think that's a really good idea. You got my brain, my wheels spinning up here about implementing something like that on this project. I'm getting ready to close out here. I think that's a great call. So it sounds like, in your opinion, I know in my opinion, lean construction is the way to go. Um, what do you think is the biggest hurdle that lean construction faces in the industry? Why are more people not jumping on board with lean construction? Is it a lack of knowledge? Is it just too hard to make the change? Do you have any thoughts on that?
You hit two of them right there. A lot of it is lack of knowledge. Um, you know, if you don't see it work, like we've had trade partners, it was kind of new to, um, and they got on board. Okay, we're going to do it. And, you know, at the end of the job, they came to us and, basically praising everything that happened, because they got out of there quicker than what they had scheduled. And they made a little more money than what they thought they were going to. And they were kind of shared that with us. And, you know, we feel like, based on their conversation, that we get a preferred price, based on if they're giving us a price and they're giving a non-lien, contractor a price, we're going to get a better price just because they know, what we're doing, and, know that we're going to get them out of there quicker.
I think that makes sense. Why wouldn't they want to work with a project that's doing that? I find that's usually one of the biggest things we've got out here is just kind of a fear of the unknown. Is a lot of people are just afraid to try something new. They want systems to be perfect. They won't admit, or maybe they will admit, they'll be the first to say that how we're doing things isn't working, right? We're over budget, our schedules are delayed, our jobs aren't as safe as they could be. But that's okay. That's just the industry norm. And to me, it's like we have this opportunity here. Let's put a little bit of work in, a little bit of effort learning and trying some new things. We're already saying that the system's not perfect. So let's try something else that makes it better, just a little bit better. That 1% increases, it stacks up over time.
Yeah, I think, you know, you can do it one or two ways, and some of that goes back to, fear of unknown. Um, what's it going to take to, and the bigger the company, the harder and more investment it's going to be to try to pull it off with everybody. So then you're going to do it with one or two jobs, uh, and say you're doing lean. You know, uh, if you got to really know, um, the value of it, to know that it's worth the couple of years transition, and jump into it, and don't turn back. You got to just go forward in that continuous improvement of, you know, we're not all going to get it at first. It's going to take a while to do it,
Mhm.
but, uh, this organization, this group of people that are in it, wouldn't be so big and wouldn't be growing as much as it is if it wasn't something right going on with it.
Yeah.
You see all the big companies, you see all the people that go to the LCI events and things like that. And you know you're on the right track when you see a lot of those industry leaders sharing the information. Who would do that? That was when Keon and Joe wrote that Lean Builder book, and I was thinking, and I tell this story all the time, but I was thinking, what the heck are we doing here? We're we're giving away the secret sauce.
Yeah.
Who does that? And but when you get out into that community, uh, and you see that you can talk freely. And we had a superintendent's huddle this morning that Adam Hoots put on. I don't know how many different companies were involved in it, but we're sitting there problems with it, daily problems with each other, and it was like, where was that a few years ago?
Yeah. I
If
mean,
you
it's
were
just crazy
talking,
to see how the industry's come a long way with that. That's a perfect example. I was on the invite for that this morning, got a little hectic here on site, but I've heard great things about that group. But it is interesting to see people coming around to intercompany sharing, right? And sharing what you're doing and what's working and what's not is really exciting to see. I think last I caught you were sharing about the lean superintendent, the lean coffee you guys had this morning, and how
yeah,
great it is
and
to see these companies coming together, sharing not even secrets, just sharing what they're doing and how they're better working on site.
yeah, I mean they're bringing up daily issues. How would you do this, or how would you do that? And people are coming out there and talking about what they're doing on how they face that problem. And in the old days, if you were talking to somebody that worked for a different company, your company would think you would, we're looking for a job or something.
Yeah,
We're not looking for jobs. Not most of us are. Uh, we're just looking to get better, and that continuous improvement. Um, and what better than to be on call with, you know, industry leaders that, might be going through something similar that I'm going through. It's pretty cool.
yeah, that's a really cool concept. I was bummed I missed this morning's session. We got off to a slow start here on site. I'm on the West Coast too, so that was a would have been a 5:30 call this morning, which
Oh, wow.
usually on site for, but
Yeah.
had a couple guys out sick today, and we're doing some real delicate work right now that's requiring an escort. So I was all over the building, but I'm looking forward. Next month, I'm gonna make sure to make it on that call. Next question I had for you was, if you were creating your own lean builder, you were designing a lean builder, what would you say is the number one trait you'd be looking for in a lean builder? Best thing they could bring to work with them every day.
An open mind, uh, to be open for change, uh, and that slogan, continuous improvement, you know, uh, culture, is a big word, that is moving around a lot more than it used to be. Uh, and, you know, we and I say this all the time too, is that we had a program one year. It was right butts in the right seats, and it basically was to get everybody aligned and going in the same direction. And if you had some that weren't, that was that difficult decision of maybe they need to be working someplace else. That's a tough stance, but some people going in the wrong direction can pull your team down about as fast as anything.
Yeah,
It's like a little cancer that just keeps growing. And when if your company's committed to, changing the culture, I mean, there's no more throwing hard hats. There's no, you know, combative, you know, superintendents aren't. It's not the way to go anymore. People will walk off a job on you. You've got to treat people right, and that's as it should be. you know, you get more out of them as these guys talk to each other in these huddles, get to know each other a little different than they did before. Uh, you can see how things get worked out a little easier in the field. Those guys talk to each other. It's just different, and that culture has got to be, all of that's got to be um, driven from management first, from management down. And so if the management's not bought into it, it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to get stalled somewhere down the line.
Yeah, I think you saying that really had me thinking. My daily huddles, they start off when I first kick off a job, and they're usually pretty stiff, right? As you start to feel your foreman out and everyone's kind of getting comfortable with each other in the room. And I've been with this group of guys now for 18 months, and our daily huddles mostly start with me having to quiet them down because they're all having side conversations because they've gotten to know each other's families and what hobbies they have and who's going to the desert or the river, what vacations they've got coming. It's like, all right, guys, let's bring it back to a little work focus here. But at the same time, I love to see that culture is there where the guys respect each other and that they truly do care about each other out here, which is awesome to see. I think
Yeah,
I've asked the question to quite a few folks about what the best trait a lean builder could have, and in one way or another. I never hear anyone say it's got to be someone with the most knowledge about structures, or I need someone that the best lean builder is going to be your best MEP guy. It's always a more of a soft skill. It's always going to be something more about an open mind or an eagerness to learn. And I just think that's something that speaks to lean as a whole. It's not the smartest guy that's going to be the best lean builder. Anyone can be a lean builder if you bring an open mind. It's not something you have or don't have. It's something you can train yourself to have, which I think is really cool.
yeah. Me at my age, um, you know, technology is kind of running off and leaving me to a certain degree. I can pick up on a lot of it, but just sitting here, my dad was in construction. He was superintendent, and they did things the hard way. They got buildings built, but it was the hard way. When you think about now, all the tools that we have, we don't build buildings a lot faster than they did. They still took, you know, several months. You might do them a couple of months quicker than they did the old way, but they're getting easier to do with the technology. And so I'd sit back and start thinking about, what it's going to be like 5, 10 years from now. Uh, and these young guys that are coming up, we're all standing on the shoulders of the guys that came before us. But these
Hmm.
young guys that are coming up, they're kind of like the superintendent 2.0. They've got all this, you know, skill that some of us older guys don't have. Uh, but I'm not sitting here worrying about that. I think it's cool to watch, and I can pick up on some of it, but you know, you can align your teams to, you know, cover. That's the same thing I tell these older superintendents. You don't have to be able to do some of this stuff. You just got to be open to letting it be done, you know. And if somebody else has to help us get it done, what's wrong with that? You
So
know,
be it.
heck, I'm not down in the trench. I don't really need to know how to use that robotic, whatever it is, just stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, uh, I just need to know the high points of what it's going to do what's it going to do for this job. And, when it doesn't work, like some of these layout guys come out here and say, well, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Okay. How did they used to do it? You know, it
Mm.
worked. So you got to be flexible, and you got to try to figure out how to how to make it work. Somebody's flipping out because a point is not working, uh, on a layout. Let's think about this. We haven't been using that forever. What's the old school way? And let's see if that's really wrong or not. And if it is, we still got to make it work. We can't just throw our arms up and say it's not going to work. So we still got to go old way in some things, uh, in discussions. and people got to be flexible to that, also with the new
Yeah,
technology.
I think blending those two is a great way to put it. I love having models created and the BIM models that we have that we're flying through to see how a building's coming together. But at some point, I think like you're saying with the survey guy kind of out there, it says it has to be right here, and this isn't working. I'll see that with a conflict or a clash we have in the field. Well, the model shows me going in right here. Well, it shows you going in right here too. Well, we're done. We can't do anything. And it's like, no, a lot of these foremen I'm talking to, it's like, you guys have been in this trade for 25, 30 years. You haven't always had a model. What would you have done if we ran into this 10 years ago? Oh, well, I'd put a 90 in right there and then I'd offset and do this. It's like, there we go. The BIM model is our guide, but let's be flexible and learn how to work within it and around it as needed.
Right.
Um,
That's a good example.
yeah. What do you think the industry's largest misconception about lean construction is? Whether that's people not practicing it or from an owner's or trade partner's end, even, what do you think people don't quite get right about lean construction?
Boy, that's a tough question right there. And I don't know that I've thought about that.
I think so. For example, one of the things I see a lot is people think that lean construction means cutting their budget down and trimming out people and running with the minimum amount of people they can at the cheapest cost they can. Or I've heard other people think, oh, lean construction is pull planning. There's just almost an oversimplification. I'm just curious if you've heard anything similar to that, or uh, any other things that people come to you on a job site and say, oh, I know lean construction, and they start running down a path and you're going, whoa, 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 pump the brakes.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is when they think they know what to do with it, and they really don't. They might have been uh, on a job that was trying to do it, or they've read up on it, or something like that. But until you actually get out there in the field and see it working, um, you know, it it really does change opinions. Uh, Owners that we work for, now that they're more involved in it and see it work, see the value of it, we bring it on sooner. We'll bring it on in the design phase. We'll bring it on uh, like with the user groups, uh, maybe supply chain uh, people that like we do a lot of medical. So you get a lot of those supply chain people involved. Start thinking about when you need things and how far out they need to plan. And a lot of times where things come a little too late, if you'd have been planning a little sooner and brought them in a little sooner, uh, they might have had the stuff here on time. Or if you're keeping everybody in the loop and you look like you're tracking to finish 2 months early, uh, you know, it doesn't do you a bit of good to finish early if they're not prepared to take the building or something like that because you weren't keeping them updated. Or
Hmm.
it's same thing with all your trade partners. Uh, it, if they're sandbagging you and they can do it in 5 days, but they tell you 10, it doesn't do us any good. We're not gaining those 5 days because you didn't tell me right to start with. If you'd have told me 5 days, we'd have put 5 days and I would have had the next trade ready to go, so you got it. There's a fine line there of people understanding that, you got to be as accurate as possible on those days, but don't pad it because we're going to lose those days that you think we gained, or by having to go back and try to get people and they're not going to be ready to come yet. You told me next Tuesday and that's when I'm coming, you know. So um, just getting all that goes along with owners groups, uh, keeping them informed and also keeping trade partners that are next in line informed as to how you're doing on your schedule.
I think that's awesome. Bring up good points. I think getting those trade partners to kind of think holistically as the team moving through the project and the guy behind them is it's a tough habit to break for them, right? They're used to padding their schedules so that they don't get beat over the head with the contract of why you missed this. So the industry has made them hesitant to be more aggressive with these things. But I'll run into often where a foreman celebrates that they finished early, but I don't have a guy lined up. Like I got a week of dead time in this room now. I could call his office and I could see what I can do to maybe gain a day or two there. But now I'm looking like I don't have my ducks in a row. It's a balance there, and it's a lot of trust that the team's got to put in each other. So
Well, I think another thing too, that where we're shortcomings is if you're doing planning, whether it be pool plan, or whatever, if you don't have the right people in the room, you're not gonna get the right answers. If
yep.
you've got the management people in the room, when you're doing a pool plan, then it's not gonna be the same, story, the same dates when the actual field guy gets out there. He's the one that knows what it's gonna take to get it done. He wasn't consulted. He had the project manager there, uh,
Hmm.
committing to dates, and, he's not the project manager is not the builder, and so he's not thinking about all the other things that go into it, and, so now those 5 days have turned into 12 days, and that's jacked up your whole schedule, just because the right people weren't in the room when you had your pool plan. That
Yeah,
project
it's
manager
huge.
can be there, but that guy's got to be sitting next to him. You know, uh, you get some extended dates on there every now and then, uh, because he's telling the truth, uh, and you got to still figure out how to juggle. Okay, what can we do? Because I can't wait that 15 days. I've got to get people started behind you. Well, we can do this, this, and this. And then that's that collaboration. That's that talk, with the right people in the room, and you'll get to your date, but it won't kill you like it will if they said 5 days and it's really 15. You know.
Yep, exactly. I think you nailed it. I think that's huge. All right, buddy. I want to end this conversation with something I saw coming out on LinkedIn. I think it was coming from Mr. Adam Hoots, the old dog lead thesaurus. Uh, Looks like a project you and Adam are working on. You want to share a little bit about what you got going with that?
Yeah, that's a project that Adam's been, looking at trying to do for several years, and he he was hoping to do it with his dad, and it was kind of one of those things where the schedule just never worked out to get it done. Disappointing to him, but he decided to go a different route with it, and for some reason, he asked me, and it was like, well, I don't, there's a there's a podcast I listened to. It was all about positive thinking, and it had a pretty good saying. It was like sloppy success is better than perfect inaction. And I like to quote that because it was like, well, you know, it may not be pretty, for a while, but I'm going to try it and see what happens. It's kind of like this. This is outside my comfort zone. Uh, and I'm an introvert and I'll be wore out on the way home just from the energy to do something different that's outside my, uh, comfort zone. But, you know, it helps you grow, and that's that continuous improvement. So, but it's a project that, I was, once I thought about it, I was kind of excited to kind of be a part of. And so we've been working on it now for almost a year, trying to get it right. And he, he's a positive individual, and he says June. So let's see. It's kind of like let's see what happens.
Go for it.
Now that it's out there and right, and it's kind of going to be hard not to make it right. It's kind of like when you publish a schedule, it's like people, some of the younger guys come to me and say, "Oh man, uh, we got like 27 days left, or you think we're going to make it?" And I'm sitting there saying, "We don't have a, option. Failure's not an
We have
option.
to.
We're going to make it one way or another." And
Yeah.
when the younger guys, and that's what I kind of like about this too, is that I get to mentor to people, and you know, in their eyes, it's hard to see, you know, but once they see it done, then you know, then they've at least seen it done rather than just hear about it. Be a part of something that looks pretty impossible, but uh, if we need to, and that's what we do with these in these lean deals is, if it is getting out of whack a little bit toward the end, because that's when the finishes all get stacked up sometimes. Uh, do another pull plan, you know, do
Yeah.
whatever it takes to get it lined back out, um, to because you can do that. I mean, you can make 70% on your, PPC every week, and you'll finish on time supposedly. But at some point, you got to hit 100%,
Yeah.
or you're not going to finish, right?
Yeah. You're going to continue to have activities out there. Yeah.
Yeah, that 70% is not going to get you across the finish line. So, um, so, but once they see it done, I think it's like the light bulb kind of goes off, and it's kind of like with other superintendents. And once they see it done, see that you can do it, you would go back and redo a schedule in the old days of try to figure out how to make it work, but it wasn't that buy-in uh, of, hey, we got like 27 days left. How are we going to do this?
Yeah. It
You're
was
going
you
to do
crunching
this,
numbers saying, if we want to make this happen, here's what we have to do. And there's no way that you're going to make that happen at that point.
right? Right. So, but you do another pull, and you get those guys figuring out how they can work together, and you don't have to have that room by yourself, and you're not going to be able to have it by yourself. You're going to be in there. Well, all right, what do we do? And well, heck, we've had it where they'll say, we'll do the night shift, or something, so we can have it by ourselves. Uh, and then everybody else, it's kind of weird how that works out, but I mean, you got to put a little effort in. I mean, sometimes it goes south like that, and you've got to figure out how to make it work. And when you're working as a team and you're collaborative, people can start trying to figure things out, and they'll help you figure out the answer, and they'll help you get there. And that's what I like.
That's awesome, buddy. Well, hey, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I appreciate you taking an hour out of your day today to sit with me and talk through this. Again, just really appreciate the knowledge you've dropped here today, and hope that some of the viewers of this video series will be able to take some tidbits that we talked through today. So appreciate your time, buddy.
You
If
bet.
there's anything I can ever do for you in the future, please reach out.
I'll do it, Tim. Thanks.
Alrighty. Have a good one, buddy. Thank you.
You too.